Strength to you all. Welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe, and thanks to John Rowe for inviting me to do this session today. I'm David Heathfield and I told stories. I still tell them. Stories I told during the pandemic when it was starting, and I went on for 100 days, telling a story each day, a breath of fresh air. Outside I told the stories, but today I'm inside and sharing with you that experience and some of the tales. This story was the last of the 100 tales I recorded, but it could so well have been the first. Here I'm playing on my mbira, a story from West Africa. You might know this one. Anansi was a fool, a trickster, and he was greedy. Anansi wanted all of the stories in the world. If I have all of the stories, then I will know everything. Everything everyone knows is in the stories. Anansi managed to steal all of the stories from the gods, from King Tiger. And when he had all the stories, he thought, where shall I hide the stories? Where no one will find them, because all of the wisdom in the world is in the stories. Only I will have that wisdom. I will hide my box of stories at the top of the tallest tree in the forest. And Anansi put all of the stories into the box and tied it to his round belly, and he changed into a spider. You know Anansi. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed high up that tree. But as he climbed, the box annoyed him. Knock, knock, knock went the box against the tree trunk. So on he climbed, higher and higher. But it was annoying. Knock, knock, knock went the box against the tree. Finally, high up in the tree, Anansi was about to hide the box when far below he heard, ha ha ha! Children were laughing. Anansi, you're a fool, Anansi, Anansi, you're a fool. You calling me a fool? Said Anansi. Yes, said the children, you're a fool, Anansi. Why are you calling me a fool? Why are you laughing at me? Anansi, said the children, why did you tie the box to your belly? You should have tied it to your back. Well, Anansi was so annoyed. He knew the children were right. He took the box from his belly and he threw it down at the children. The box came flying down. The children were ready. But fortunately, the box struck a branch of the tree and broke open, and out of the box flowed all of the stories. The stories were carried on the breeze, far away. Stories were carried as far away as you can imagine. The stories floated to the east and to the west, to the north and to the south, and all around the wonderful world, over rivers and mountains and forests and deserts, over oceans, to the ice. All of the world was covered in stories. And then, like bright motes of shining, sparkling dust, the stories began to settle down, landing on those rivers and mountains, those forests and rivers, those oceans, even on the ice. The stories landed on the creatures that crawl, those that swim, the birds in the air that fly. All of the creatures got some stories, and all of us, the people, wherever we are, we got stories too. That's how they say in West Africa that we, the people, got the stories. We are all story carriers. We can all be storytellers. It started on the cliffs near Salcombe in South Devon. I live in Exeter, and I went on a trip the first day that Tammy and I, my wife and I, were not working. We went for a walk along the coast to take a breath of fresh air, to think what's coming. And I told a story. Why is Masabe up on that cliff? A story from Burma, a story that I'd just learned. And then each day that followed, we went for a walk in the fresh air near our home in Devon, sometimes just a stone's throw away. And then lockdown came and we didn't walk so far. We walked down to the River Exe, through the local valley park, just on the edge of Exeter where we live. Ludwell Valley Park was our most common route. Often in my back garden, I told stories, and each day shared them with you, people around the world. And the more I told, the more you encouraged me. So I went on. And now, let me tell you another story that I recorded. Because we're going on a journey round the world. This is what I do. I tell stories from all around the world. I learn them, often from people that I meet. Fatima, a teenage girl studying English, came to a language school in Exeter a few years ago. And when I'd finished my set of stories for the teenagers gathered there, Fatima sprang up from her seat. I've got a story to tell. I've got a story about Joha, otherwise called Nasruddin or Hodja, or Appendi, depending which part of the world you're in, many other names. The wise fool, the trickster. And this is the story that she told me. A story that she had learned in Tunisia. Joha and the magic mouse. Can you imagine what kind of magic this mouse might do? Yes? Really? Let's find out. Is it really a magic mouse? You can tell me at the end. Joe had been in trouble. He'd been in prison again for cheating, for embezzling, for borrowing and not returning money from his rich friend. And when he came to the coffee shop, his rich friend was there. "You out of prison already, Joha?" "Yes," said Joha. "My friend, can I come in, share a coffee with you?" "You have nothing to pay with. You belong in prison. Out." Well, Joha went out of the coffee shop. He was angry. As he walked through the streets towards his home, he wondered how his wife might receive him. "Don't come in, Joha. You're lazy, useless, good for nothing. In prison again you've been." Joha walked through the empty street, and there he saw 2 little grey mice. He caught them. He had an idea. He went back home to his wife. "Wife, you know, I have a plan. I can get some money." Well, his wife listened. "Look after this mouse. Put it in a box and prepare a meal. The best meal that you can imagine. What will you cook? Couscous? With beef?" "Why?" "Just trust me," said Joha. And his wife agreed and began to cook a meal of delicious couscous with beef. And Nasruddin, or Joha, went with the other mouse through the streets and back to the coffee shop. And when he came inside, his friend was still drinking coffee. "You should not be here, Joha. You cheated me." "My friend, look here. I have a magic mouse, see?" Well, the friend looked. "What do you mean, magic?" "I'll tell you," said Joha. "Buy me a coffee." The friend was curious and bought a coffee, and Joha drank it down. "Now I'll tell you. What would you like to eat tonight? You can come to my house. I'll send my magic mouse to tell my wife what to prepare. Would you like couscous?" "Couscous," said his friend. "And beef?" "Beef." "Your favourite." "Mouse, tell my wife to prepare couscous and beef. Off you go." "What are you talking about?" said the friend. "We've got time," said Joha. "Let's drink another coffee." And when they had finished drinking the coffee, Joha said, "Come, my wife will have prepared the meal by now. The mouse is quick." "What are you talking about?" said the rich friend. They went along the streets, the empty streets, and now they came to the home. And to his surprise, the friend could smell the delicious flavour of couscous with beef. "The food is ready, husband." Joha's wife had set the plates, and they began to eat the delicious meal. His friend, "Your wife, you are a great cook. But how did you know?" "Well, it's the mouse," said Joha. And Joha went to the box where his wife had put the mouse, and he took it out and showed it to his rich friend. "This is my magic mouse. Can you not see? A mouse that can talk, a mouse that can communicate." "This is indeed a magic mouse," said Joha's rich friend. "How much will you sell it to me for?" "Oh, it's not for sale," said Joha. "It's magic." "You know I have money. How much will you sell it to me for?" I couldn't possibly," said Joha. "I need it for myself." "I'll give you 1,000,000 dinar." "1,000,000, said Joha. "In cash, now?" And the rich friend took the dinar from his pocket and counted out 1,000,000 dinar. "Very well," said Joha. "But look after the mouse." "Of course." Ha! The rich friend went out of the house with many plans. Joha turned to his wife. "Husband," she said, "he will be back when he knows that you've tricked him." "Wife," said Joha, "that'll be later. Don't worry about then. Think about now. Live for the moment. Look, we have 1,000,000 dinar to do what we want with." Joha is sometimes a trickster and sometimes a fool. Thank you, Fatima, for telling me that story. Let me, on the way round the world, take a detour and come home to here, to Devon, where I am from. I grew up in Exmouth. I live in Exeter, not far from Dartmoor, where this tale is from. This is a home tale for me. It's one that I've told for such a long time. And again, I included it in my 100 stories from round the world. On the edge of Dartmoor there lived a farmer and wife. They were poor. One night the farmer wife dreamt that it was day. She woke up and put her basket over her arm and set off for the high moor. She put the basket over her arm and left the cottage and followed the full moon. She walked higher and higher and higher. And when she was there on the high moor, she saw, silhouetted against the moon, a creature running, a creature that was so swift with long ears, a creature that zigzagged back and forth as it ran. She knew that it was a hare. And behind the hare there came a black hound, a huge black hound, and behind the hound there rode a horse, and on the horse's back was a rider, tall in the saddle, with a black hat. And as the hunter came closer, chasing that hare, she saw that the hunter had horns, one on each side of his head. And she saw also that the hunter had no boots on his feet. In fact, there were no feet, there were cloven hooves. She knew that this was the devil. But she was not afraid. The hare leapt over the hedgerow in front of her, and there on the granite track, she caught that hare and put it inside her basket and closed the lid. And now the black hound leapt over the hedge, and the rider too on the black horse, and the rider pulled up. The devil looked at her, his eyes burning red, his foul breath. "Old woman, I have been giving chase to a hare on these moors. Tell me, which way did it run?" The old woman looked up. The farmer's wife did not flinch. She looked into the devil's eyes and pointed along the granite track. "That way? Are you sure?" And now the devil leant down in the saddle, removing the hat. His horns were gleaming. His breath was rank. But she did not flinch. She was not afraid. She held the devil's gaze. The devil sat up again in the saddle, cracked his whip, and the hound silently ran along the track, and the horse, although it was swift, made no clatter upon the granite stones. And when the devil had run away, had ridden away, The farmer wife looked at the basket and opened the lid, and out of it came no hare, instead a beautiful spirit, shining white. Beautiful young woman. A ghost. I thank you, kind woman. You are gentle and brave. As a hare I was hunted, but now I am saved. For the devil that chased me is now gone ahead. I may pass as a spirit to the world of the dead. The spirit just vanished into the moonlight. The farmer wife took her basket and set off for home. When she reached home, it was still dark. She went back to her bed and she slept. And in the morning, when she woke, she told her husband what had happened. And no more than a dream, a fancy, wife. Fancy you tricking the devil? Don't think so. She went down to fetch the eggs from under the hens, but this morning there were twice as many eggs as she'd ever found before, and she went to sell them. When she milked the cow, it yielded double the milk as ever before, and the milk was rich and creamy, and she sold the milk too. The next day there was more eggs, more milk, more than ever before. Such good quality produce. She sold them every day at the market in Bovey. She was making a good profit, and her husband was impressed. This went on day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. They became wealthier. And finally her husband believed her. It was her reward for saving that spirit from the devil. A Devon tale, a Dartmoor tale, a home tale for me. So the stories I was telling during A Breath of Fresh Air, I sometimes told them because they were local, but nearly all of the tales were from around the world. But somehow setting a tale about a river, Nasreddin, the ferryman rowing across the river, I told it beside the River Exe, the river that courses through Devon. I told stories of trees in forested areas, woodland on Woodbury Common. So I was, in a way, resetting those stories, but it's not my nature to reset the story completely, to turn a Chinese tale into a Devon tale. It was still very much the Chinese tale that I'd been told, but located here when I told it, and I connected with the landscape and storied the landscape in my imagination, and perhaps in yours as well. China. A story from China, and I was told this story by a woman who's actually from Malaysia, and she teaches English as I do. She teaches in the United Arab Emirates, but she came to a conference where I was telling stories, and at the event that I hosted, she shared a story. Her name is Jennifer Abu Hassan, a Chinese tale she brought to us, and she said, I tell this story to my students so that they think for themselves. So all of these first set of stories that I've been telling involve some kind of trickery, even the old woman who tricked the devil. There was once a young man, and he said to his father, Father, you are the best burglar. Teach me the art of burglary. Are you ready, son? Then come with me tonight. And the boy went with his father, the burglar, and they came to a great house. His father cut a hole through the fence. They climbed through. On they went to the walls. His father scaled the walls seemingly easily, his son following. His father managed to prise open a window upstairs, and they squeezed through and into a great chamber, and there in the darkness his father found a chest. He unlocked the chest. He picked it open, opened the lid, and there was shining treasure, trinkets and jewels, and rubies, diamonds, gold aplenty. His father took out the bag that he had brought with him. He filled it with the treasure, and when all of the treasure was on his back, he said to his son, "Climb into the chest." "Why, father?" "Do as I say if you want to learn the art of burglary." Well, his son climbed into the chest, and immediately his father slammed down the lid and with his skill locked the chest again. The boy said, "Father, father, what are you doing? Let me out." But he heard his father's footsteps. He heard his father climbing out of the window. "My father has left me here to be caught, to be killed." At that moment he heard voices. He heard footsteps coming quickly into the room. The crime was discovered. Immediately he began to scratch at the side of the chest. He pretended to be a rat inside the chest. The chest was opened and there was a young servant girl. He jumped out, frightened her. She screamed. People came running. He climbed between their legs and ran, scrambled for the window. When he got to the window, he jumped out, landed on his haunches. He saw the people looking out the window. "We'll get you, thief." They came down the stairs, but he was across to the fence. He squeezed through the hole, but there were so many coming and they had weapons. When he came out beyond the fence, he started running, but he knew that now he would be surrounded. They would be too quick. He reached a well. There he picked up a heavy stone, threw it down the well, and with a great splash, he climbed a tree near the well and hid among the branches, looked down. The people gathered around the well. "Did you hear that?" "Ha ha! The fool has fallen down the well. The water's deep. He's drowned. Serves him right. In the morning we'll retrieve our treasure." When they had gone, he crept down from the tree and hurried home. "Father, you wanted me dead. Why did you leave me in the chest?" "Son," said his father, "you are home, safe and sound. How did you do it?" "Well, I pretended to be a rat. I sprang out at the maid. I climbed between her legs. I jumped down from the window. I squeezed through the hole in the fence. They were after me. I was sure they were going to kill me. I threw a great stone down the well, hid up in the tree. They thought that I was drowned, and now I am back here with you." "My son, you have now learned the art of burglary." Thank you, Jennifer Abu Hassan, for such a wonderful story. A story that she tells her students. They said, "What, are you teaching them to be burglars?" "No," she said, "I'm teaching them to be smart. Don't rely on what the books and what your teachers tell you. You've got to learn it for yourself." Too true. And the stories certainly help us with that. I love the moon. Perhaps the moon was lighting the night when the burglary happened. The moon was certainly lighting the night when the old woman tricked the devil. Here's another moon story. I'm a member of the International Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language, so I'm a teacher and a storyteller. I'm a storytelling teacher. I work a lot with teachers around the world. And I hosted an event at a recent International Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language online event, because with the pandemic going on, lots of teaching has gone online, and the annual face-to-face conference, the global conference that was going to happen in Manchester, had to be deferred. So I hosted an event online. And fortunately, the president of IATEFL agreed to tell a story. His name is Dr. Harry Kucha Kucha, and he's originally from the north of Cameroon. He's from the AM tribe. So Harry graced us with this story. So let's leave the tricks behind and talk about what matters. Love, kindness, and generosity, what we need at these troubling times. Long ago, after our ancestors' gods created this world, there were times of joy. The moon and the sun were glad together, wife and husband. But then there came times of plague and war. The moon lost faith in her husband, the sun. She saw his warring ways. He was cruel, harsh, and she left him. The moon rose up in the sky by herself. She believed that no man in this world had a good heart, although there was something deep inside that wondered, perhaps somewhere there would be a son of man who carried kindness and love and wanted harmony. So she went searching. The moon searched across the sky from north to south, from west to east, but she found no son of man with such goodness in his heart. She witnessed so much cruelty and deceit. She began her search again. She wanted to have faith. She went from north to northwest, from northwest to west, from west to southwest, from southwest to south. Still she had found no man with goodness in his heart. She went from south to southeast, from southeast to east, from east to northeast, from northeast to north. Still she had found none. One night she heard a sound. She heard a sound of singing and rhythmic chopping. She looked down, and there she saw a man working in the middle of the night. The man was splitting wood on the edge of the village where he lived. The man was Bankembong, and Bankembong had a child strapped to his back. And as he worked splitting the wood, he sang a song of love and harmony, a song of generosity. The moon waited and listened, and the next night she returned. No one else was around, only she listening to Bankembong's song as he split wood, and the child was strapped to his back, and he was happy. The third night she returned, made sure that no one else was around. She raised Bankembong up from the ground, rose up in the sky with him. Since that time, Bankembong and the moon are together. And the AM people, when they look up at the sky when the moon is large, when the moon is full, they see in the shadows Bankembong. He's bent over his work splitting wood. He carries a child strapped to his back. And if you listen, you might hear the music of his song, his rhythmic song, a song of love. There is hope somewhere in the hearts of men. There is kindness. Thank you for encouraging me to retell that story, Harry Kucha Kucha. So, a journey around the world to many lands. I love learning tales from different cultures. One tale that I told as part of A Breath of Fresh Air, by the way, you can find A Breath of Fresh Air by searching my name, David Heathfield, A Breath of Fresh Air. You can find that playlist of 100 stories on YouTube. Please do have a look. But this last story is a story from Bolivia, from the Yucarare people. It's a story that speaks to me again of these times we're living through, a time when it's hard sometimes. There's despair. Many of you have experienced loss of one kind and another. It's a healing story to bring this wonderful opportunity to share stories on the World Storytelling Cafe with you, to bring this to a close. I want to say thank you again to you for listening, to John Rowe for inviting me. I'm looking forward to participating again with some of the people that I've told stories with around the world. I've been doing courses for storytelling teachers recently, creative and engaging storytelling for teachers. And many of the stories that I'm learning at the moment are from them. So perhaps we'll return and share some stories with you, some of my new friends from around the world. But here's the story from Bolivia. Long ago, there were two tribes living on the plains. And these two tribes, they survived alongside each other. Each had enough land to grow their crops. But one day the great sorcerer, Sararuma, came to the chief of one tribe. He was huge, his cloak of smoke. He was wicked. He was full of lies. The other tribe are raising an army. They are going to do battle with you, burn your crops. They will destroy you. They will take you by surprise. Prepare. Sararuma then went to the chief of the other tribe. Have you heard, he said. He was even bigger than before. There is a time of destruction coming. The other tribe are preparing to fight you. They will burn and destroy all your crops. They will destroy your houses. They will kill you all. Prepare to fight. A man and a woman came to their chief. Do not believe the words of Sararuma. The sorcerer is full of lies. Pay no attention to him. But their leader had listened, and he raised an army. He thought he would strike first. He set fire to the other tribe's crops. Fire was burning on both sides because the other tribe had been prepared for attack. They went to war. There was great battle. All of the trees in the valleys were destroyed. The plain was burned. There was only ash and smoke and fire. And as the fires died down, there was no more life. No bird song, no creatures, all was death. And the great sorcerer Sarurama appeared, and he was vast now, towering high and howling and laughing. Now I have all power. I rule over everything. I, the bringer of death. Deep under the ground, the man and the woman who had warned their chief were hiding in a hole that they had dug. Husband, is it time yet? He took a long stick that he had brought down with him. He pushed the stick up through the earth to the surface. When he pulled it down again, it was burning. We have to wait. More time passed. He took another stick and pressed it up through the earth, and when he brought it down again, the stick was smouldering a little longer. It is time now, husband, she said, after more time had passed, and the third stick came back clean. They began to dig upwards from under the ground, removing the earth from above their heads, and finally they came out, well, it was not light, a greyness. They came out to the surface and stood looking around. Ash, smoke, blackened trees. As they stood there, a great swirling came, a great howling, and there, towering above them, was Sararama. "Ah!" said the great sorcerer, "what are you doing here? All has been destroyed." "We are here. We are here again. We will live." "No, there is no one and nothing for you. There is nothing for you to eat." The woman opened her hand and showed the seeds that she had taken down under the ground. "We will plant." Sarurama became smaller. "The earth is no longer fertile. You will not be able to grow. There are no creatures for you to live with. You cannot live without other animals." "Look, listen," said the man, and sure enough, snuffling came, as snouted creatures pushed up from their burrows under the ground where they had been hiding, and far in the distance, the sound of birdsong. And as they listened and as they looked, green shoots appeared on the ends of the branches, new growth. The world will return. Things will grow. We will all live, said the man and the woman. And Sararama was now smaller, no longer mighty. But you are alone, just you and you. You need society. The man and the woman looked at each other and then looked at the small spirit. We will have children. Sararama howled. Smaller and smaller he became until he became nothing more than a cloud of dust, howling silently away into nothing. This story, After the Fire, I give to you. It's a Yurikare story from the lowlands of Bolivia. So in this short session, we've had stories from West Africa, how stories came around the world, Anansi and the stories. We've had Joha and the Magic Mouse, thank you Fatima, in Tunisia. I told you the story of the hunted hare. I call it the Heathfield hare. My name's Heathfield, and it takes place in the small village of Heathfield near Bovey Tracy. That's where the story comes from, according to the book Devon Folktales by V.D. Sharman. I told you the story that I learned from Jennifer Abu Hassan, The Art of Burglary, a Chinese tale. I told you the story of Bankembong, an Ayam story from the north of Cameroon that I learnt from Harry Kucha Kucha, and I finished with After the Fire, a Bolivian myth. All these stories are for you. Take them, tell them. Thank you again. I'm David Heathfield, and it's a breath of fresh air.
Young and old, you've been listening to a wonderful storyteller. And if you really liked it, if you've got a little money, doesn't have to be a lot, A little goes a long, long way, as they say. And you can afford it. Just pop it into the storyteller's hat, because right now they're not earning at all, so whatever you've got, it will be appreciated. And I'm sure you parents will have set a good example for your children. Oh, it's lovely. I'm only joking. But it will keep some of us going through this crisis. And those of you that are self-employed out there will know exactly what I mean, and you're probably exempt.